Citadelle Gin is an icon in the world of gin. The first gin to be made in France, the first gin to introduce a barrel-aged version in the world, and not least an amazingly well-balanced gin to drink. And lately, the numbers of new releases from Citadelle has just exploded. But the quality and the taste experience has never been higher. So there's a good reason why we should check them out. Hi guys, and welcome to High on Gin. The creativity at Citadelle has just exploded. The world-renowned distillery in the southwest parts of France has released so many new and very exciting gins that even I lost count. They have gone from having around 2 to 3 gins to now having around 9 different versions to choose from. So why don't we start with the story behind Citadelle and take a closer look at the original Citadelle gin, as this is the foundation for all the gins that they have released so far. And after that, I will take a closer look at the new and exciting gins that they have released and that I think that we really should check out. The story behind Citadelle Gin starts all the way back in 1996, back when gin was nearly as popular as it has been the last 10 years. This gin was actually the first artisanal gin that came out of France. The creator, Alexandre Gabriel, is the owner and master blender behind Maison Ferrand, a company behind some of the best known cognacs and rums that you can get. The company, Maison Ferrand, was created with a mission in mind: to keep old-aged craft-based production methods alive, which are, worlds apart from the mass production techniques, and then to showcase the true expression of Grand Champagne and its terroir, this beautiful district that lies in the heart of the region Cognac. And when Alexandre got the idea of making a gin, he was inspired by 2 things. One, he was very eager to use the wildly grown juniper berries that grew around Château de Bourbonnais, where the distillery is located. And 2, he was very inspired by the story of the legendary distillery that Louis XVI built in 1775 in Dunkirk's Citadelle, with its 12 shiny pot stills that were set to produce Juniper for the French court. Juniper is this very botanically rich malted grain-based spirit that has this taste, well, a little like malted wine or unaged whiskey with juniper and citrus notes to it. And if you wonder about the name Citadelle, it is the name of the fortress that commands a city. But let's look at the first gin that Alexandre made. The Citadelle Gin here is made from a base alcohol that comes from local wheat, and then it has 19 botanicals. Of course, the first thing there is in this gin is, of course, the local juniper berries. Here, the distillery has planted more than 2,500 juniper trees to be able to keep up with the increased sales. They have used violet root, coriander, almond, angelica, cardamom, cassia bark, cinnamon, licorice, grains of paradise, cubeb, cumin, savory, star anise, nutmeg, fennel, orris root, orange peel, and then lemon rin. And rin is where you have both the zest and a little bit of the bitter white underlayer as well. They use an atypical and patented infusion technique called progressive infusion, where each botanical is infused in spirit of different proofs and of different length of time to really capture the unique aromatic and flavor properties in each botanical. The distillation is done in their Sergent stills that were invented for cognac distillation in the southwestern France back in the 16th century. The stills at Citadelles are heated over open flames, just like they did back then. And the result is an unusual, well-balanced gin, very crisp, clear, juniper-centric and citrus-led gin with some additional black pepper heat to it. It is just such an amazing classic gin, and still a huge hit here in our house. The design of the bottle has changed 3 times since its launch, from a very traditional bottle to a more noticeable bottle back in 2014, inspired from a vintage siphon seltzer bottle where more elements of the story of gin was incorporated. And then to the bottle release around 2017, and that is used today, that really underlines the uniqueness of the gin with all the added details. And here's a fun fact. As gin wasn't very popular back in the 90s, Citadelle Gin wasn't an instant hit when it was released. But when the chef superstar Ferran Adria from probably the most famous restaurant in the world, El Bulli, showed a bottle of Citadelle on TV in 1997 and called a gin and tonic a gastronomic act, things started to happen for Citadelle. And for around 12 years, they just did the regular Citadelle, but then something happened. In 2008, they did their first barrel-aged gin in the world, called Citadelle Réserve. Yep, they were the ones to start this amazing trend that is used by every distillery today. At the beginning, they used the regular Citadelle as a starting point, but it was made as a vintage gin where they, from year to year experimented with different parameters like aging period or barrel types or proportion of the botanical used. And in 2012, they decided to add 3 additional botanicals to the standard Citadelle gin to make the Reserve. Yuzu, Juniper, and cornflower was added. And they have stayed with this new gin recipe ever since. In 2013, they decided to make the Reserve a more consistent product and not a vintage product, so that you would get the same gin no matter the year that it was made. They started to use a so-called Solera system. A Solera system is a fractional aging and blending method that ensures that your end product is very consistent. And if you want to know more about this, you really should take a look at my video about 4 Pillars barrel-aged gin, where I explain more about this amazing method. I'll link to it up here. In 2017, they added an additional element to the Citadelle Réserve Gin, a 200-liter, 2.5-meter high, egg-shaped barrel called the ovum. Ovum is the name of the female reproduction cell and the Latin word for egg. The idea with the ovum is to fill it with different barrel-aged gins and let it rest there for some time to give the gin a finishing touch. The egg shape gives a natural convection, which is a constant movement of the gin inside, but a movement without the use of any motor or any energy. Wow! What a stunning vat! That is simply a piece of art. In 2016, Alexandre Gabriel started to do even more experiments with the introduction of the limited edition series called Extreme Collection. And the idea was to take the Citadelle gin to the extreme, so to say, to play with the different elements in the gin and enhance some of them, to enhance the citrus side or, the juniper side or the spicy side. Add and extract and enhance. And the first release in 2016 was the Citadelle No Mistake Old Tom Gin, made with caramelized Caribbean brown sugar that was put in a barrel with its cask-aged Citadelle Réserve, so a sweeter version of the Citadelle Réserve. Then followed Extreme number 2 in 2017, the Wild Blossom, a gin inspired by Alexandre's mother's love for herbal infusions, a Citadelle gin that was distilled with wild cherry blossom petals and aged in a cherry wood cask for 5 months. And in 2019, they released the next limited edition, the Saisons of the Witch, which he made by roasting the juniper berries and distilling it with the other botanicals to create a, slightly smoky roasted peppery gin. Only 400 bottles were made, not many when you are as popular as Citadelle is all over the world, and it's quite pricey to get today if you can find it. I mean, it's around 1,000 Danish kroner or 135 euros. But a lot of these gins were very specialized gins, so to say, so they probably appeal to a smaller audience or the more hardcore fans. But in 2021, this was a very big year for Citadelle and for every Citadelle fan with the release of no less than 3 new gins. First, they released the Jardin Gin or the Summer Garden Gin, a Citadelle gin where additional lemons grown at the distillery are added with whole with extra orange zest and yuzu. And then the French cantaloupe melon called Sergent was added to round the gin off, to give a softness to it, to this citrus-centric gin. This one here, it just screams summer and sun in so many ways. This one is not a limited release, so you should be able to get it everywhere. The 4th edition of their limited series, the Sergent Pepper, was also released in 2021. Here they focus on the peppery element of the Citadelle gin by combining it with the freshness of the Sancho berries and with some of the rarest peppers in the world, the white bird pepper from Cambodia. The additional pepper, it really suits the Citadelle so well. The fruitiness that it gives and the spiciness that this pepper gives, it just makes this gin so amazing. I was lucky to actually find a bottle online. Otherwise, a lot of these limited editions are often only sold at the chateau. But if you look, you should be able to find it somewhere. And then finally, in 2021, the 25th anniversary edition called Juniper Decadence was released as their 5th edition in the Extreme Collection series. This one is, well, it's actually a barrel-aged gin, but since it only rests for a month in the cask made from juniper wood, it's not like a normal barrel-aged gin. I just love this one, the silkiness and the smoothness it has. It has a little touch of peppery juniper to it, and then it has this, well, I know it sounds crazy, coconut flavor to it. I know. There isn't any coconut in it, but if you taste it, and you really should, you'll see what I mean. This one, it's so damn good. And with these 3 here, that ends the amazing year 2021. What a year for Citadelle. And then this year, in April 2022, they released the 6th edition of the Extreme series called the Citadelle Vive Cornichons gin. They did this gin together with Maison Marc, the makers of some of the finest and best Cornichons in France. It is set to give the Citadelle a salty and vinegar touch with some fine notes of mustards and pearl onions. I've been searching and searching for this one, and I just found it a couple of hours ago. Woohoo! And I can't wait to get it and to test it. So guys, there you have it, an amazing collection of super well-made gins from Citadelle. If you haven't tried the classic Citadelle gin, it's a must. And if you already know this one here, do me a favor and see if you can get some of the versions, at least the versions released here in 2021. I think they're absolutely amazing. And you can decide whether you want to start with the citrus version or the peppery version or the juniper-centric version. I mean, just go get them while you still can. Until next time.